The Aztecs, or Mexica, were a brilliant and powerful civilization that dominated central Mexico from the 14th to the early 16th century. According to legend, they followed a prophecy from their god Huitzilopochtli to a place where they would see an eagle eating a snake atop a cactus. And that spot turned out to be a swampy island in Lake Texcoco, where they built their capital, Tenochtitlan. Against the odds, they turned the marshland into a thriving metropolis using incredible engineering, constructing causeways, aqueducts, and floating gardens to grow food. Tenochtitlan became a stunning city of canals, plazas, and temples, housing over 200,000 people, rivaling the largest cities of Europe. The Aztec Empire expanded through war and diplomacy, ruling over millions and demanding tribute such as food, cloth, gold, and even humans from surrounding regions. Their religion was deeply tied to nature and cycles of life and death, and they believed that keeping the universe in balance required human sacrifice, especially to feed the sun and guarantee its daily rise. While this belief made sense within their worldview, it terrified and angered their neighbors, many of whom were brutally conquered. Though the Aztecs were powerful, the resentment they created made them vulnerable to outside threats, and one was about to arrive from across the sea. In 1519, a Spanish conquistador named Hernán Cortés landed on the eastern coast of Mexico with just over 600 men, a few cannons, and 16 horses, animals the indigenous people had never seen before. Cortés had defied his orders and set out to conquer the unknown empire. He had heard of a land filled with gold, temples, and power. He quickly learned that the region was politically unstable. Many native peoples lived under Aztec rule and were unhappy, especially those forced to give up tribute or lives for sacrifice. Cortés was clever. He didn't just use weapons, he used alliances. He formed pacts with local groups, most importantly the Tlaxcalans, bitter enemies of the Aztecs. But perhaps his most valuable asset was a woman named Malintzin, also known as La Malinche. She was a native woman who could speak multiple languages and soon learned Spanish. She became Cortés's translator, advisor, and strategic partner, allowing him to understand the complex politics of the region. Some remember her as a traitor, while others view her as a bridge between cultures. Either way, her influence shaped history. Cortés and his growing army, now thousands strong with indigenous allies, marched inland toward the greatest city in the Americas, Tenochtitlan. As Cortés approached the heart of the Aztec Empire, word of his arrival reached Montezuma II, the emperor. A deeply religious man, Montezuma struggled to understand whether these strange foreigners were gods, invaders, or omens of doom. Some believe he may have considered the possibility that Cortés was Quetzalcoatl, a fair-skinned god who had been prophesied to return, though this idea is debated among historians. Hoping to keep the peace or out of fear, Montezuma chose diplomacy over war. He welcomed Cortés into Tenochtitlan with great ceremony, offering gifts of gold, feathers, and food, hoping to impress the visitors and perhaps control them. But the Spanish saw this wealth and power as weakness. While Cortés pretended to be a respectful guest, he quickly realized the opportunity in front of him. He seized Montezuma as a hostage, holding him in his own palace and using him to rule indirectly. The Aztec people were confused and angry. How could their divine ruler be taken prisoner? Cortés demanded more gold and dismantled local traditions, disrespecting temples and ceremonies. Though Montezuma tried to calm the situation, his own people began to see him as weak or compromised. The tension between world's Spanish ambition and Aztec pride was about to explode. While Cortés briefly left the city to fight a rival Spanish force on the coast, he left his second-in-command, Pedro de Alvarado, in charge. During a sacred festival to honor the god Huitzilopochtli, Alvarado ordered a surprise massacre of Aztec nobles and priests, fearing an uprising. The result was chaos, outrage, and rebellion erupted across Tenochtitlan. When Cortés returned, he found his men trapped and under siege. Montezuma tried one last time to calm his people, stepping onto a balcony to speak to the angry crowds. But instead of respect, he was met with stones and arrows. He died soon after, though it's still debated whether his own people killed him or the Spanish did. With no way out, the Spanish planned a desperate nighttime escape across the narrow causeways that connected the island to the mainland. On the rainy night of June 30th, 1520, the Aztecs attacked during the escape. Many Spaniards drowned under the weight of stolen gold. Others were captured and sacrificed. Nearly half the Spanish force was lost, along with thousands of native allies. Cortés himself was wounded and devastated. He wept beneath a tree, mourning the defeat. This night became known as La Noche Triste, the sad night. But even in defeat, Cortés began planning his revenge. Unbeknownst to all, a far more dangerous enemy than swords or arrows had already begun its silent attack: smallpox. Shortly after the Spanish fled, a devastating smallpox epidemic swept through Tenochtitlan. Brought by one infected Spanish soldier, the disease spread like wildfire among a population that had no immunity. It killed tens of thousands, including the new Aztec Emperor Cuitlahuac, and left entire neighborhoods abandoned. The Spanish, immune through past exposure, remained relatively safe. In 1521, Cortés returned to Tenochtitlan with a massive army made up of Spanish troops, thousands of native allies, and even warships that he had built to control the lake. He launched a brutal siege, surrounding the city and cutting off all food, water, and supplies. The Aztecs, now led by the young and courageous Emperor Cuauhtémoc, refused to surrender. For nearly 3 months, they fought back fiercely, turning rooftops, canals, and streets into deadly battlegrounds. Starving, sick, and surrounded, the people of Tenochtitlan endured unimaginable suffering. Corpses piled up in the streets, temples were destroyed, and ancient knowledge was lost to flames and rubble. On August 13th, 1521, after weeks of intense fighting and starvation, the city finally fell. Cuauhtémoc was captured and later tortured as the Spanish searched for hidden gold. The once great city of Tenochtitlan, jewel of the Aztec world, was reduced to ruins. With Tenochtitlan in ashes, Cortés declared victory and began building Mexico City atop its ruins, making it the capital of New Spain. Spanish rule spread quickly through the region, and the surviving native peoples were forced into labor, converted to Christianity, and forbidden from practicing their traditional religions. Temples were torn down and replaced with churches, and many ancient texts and artworks were destroyed. The population collapsed within a century. Up to 90% of indigenous people in the region died from disease, slavery, and starvation. But despite this, the Aztec legacy lived on. Many descendants of the Aztecs, known as the Nahua, still live in Mexico today. Their language, Nahuatl, is still spoken, and many foods we eat like chocolate, avocados, and tomatoes come from their culture. Even the Mexican flag features the old Aztec symbol of the eagle on a cactus. The fall of the Aztec Empire was one of the most dramatic and tragic events in world history, marking the end of a civilization but not the end of its story. Through the language, symbols, and people of Mexico, the Aztec spirit continues to live on. If you found this story about the fall of the Aztec Empire fascinating, make sure to like and subscribe.